5 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few kickers I would start this week. The first guy's Daniel Carlson, Las Vegas Raiders. Carlson, he had an off day in week 4 at the Los Angeles Chargers. 2 extra points and a 53-yarder missed in that ball game. But right here, week 5, I think he gets it going once again in a good matchup versus the Chicago Bears that give up the 7th most fantasy points to kickers. It's a home game as well, which is another good indoor game here for Daniel Carlson. In the first few weeks of the season, he was the best kicker up until week 4 in fantasy points scored, so it was a quick hiccup in my opinion. I still have confidence in him, and I definitely would start him this week. The next kicker is Greg Zuerlein of the Dallas Cowboys. So Greg the Leg, he's been up and down so far this season, with a few games where he's missed easy chip shots and then games where he's hit a game winner in week 2 at the Chargers. So right here, he's got a good matchup in week 5 versus the New York Giants. They give up the 11th most fantasy points to kickers. And right here, this Dallas Cowboy offense is a high-powered offense. And Greg the Leg, he's going to get an opportunity to hit at least 2 or 3 extra points in this one and at least 2 or 3 field goal attempts because this offense gets in the red zone a lot. And in this game, I could see maybe the Giants holding this offense down a little because they're similar with Dak Prescott and this offense obviously playing them twice a year. But right here, Greg Zuerlein each and every week is pretty much a slam dunk start with the roster he's on in the team. And this week, I like him a lot versus the Giants. The next kick is Matt Prater of the Arizona Cardinals. So Prater, last week, a huge fantasy day for him in week 4 at the Los Angeles Rams. 27, 28-yarder, 53-yarder, and 4 extra points. And he's on a team like Zuerlein where this Arizona Cardinal team, they get in the red zone a lot. They score a lot of touchdowns, I know. But right here, Prater, he's going to get many opportunities, 3 or 4 extra points probably, and 2 or 3 field goal attempts. So right there, if he hits all those shots, that's at least 8 to 10 fantasy points. And this week versus the San Francisco 49ers, who give up the 12th most fantasy points to kickers. I think, once again, Matt Prater finds double digits in this one. The next kick is Younghoe Koo of the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons have a good matchup here versus the New York Jets, who give up the 2nd most fantasy points to kickers on the season. I know Younghoe Koo, he was one of the earlier kickers drafted in fantasy leagues this year, and it's not that he's missing his field goals. This Atlanta team, it's just been a bad season for them, even though in the last 2 ball games out of 3, they've scored 25 or more points. But right here for Koo, the highest amount he's had this season is 6 fantasy points. But right here with a good matchup in London in an indoor stadium versus the New York Jets, I think Koo's going to get some opportunities. And the Jets, they were also a defense that's a bend but don't break defense at times, where the Falcons, I think, will have to settle for a few field goals. So I'd like Koo as a start this week. And the 5th and final kicker I like as a start this week's Rodrigo Blankenship of the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts, they're a team that don't finish many drives with a touchdown. And so far this season, Rodrigo Blankenship, he's been very good, especially from week 2 to week 4, with 2 out of the 3 games being a double-digit fantasy day at the kicker position, and that only 1 game he didn't reach it in week 3 versus Tennessee. He still had 9 fantasy points. So right here versus Baltimore, I think this is a game where the Ravens defense, they're going to make plays, obviously, on Carson Wentz. They're going to make it tough for them to find the end zone. And I think Blankenship, he could hit 2 or 3 field goals and find double digits once again in fantasy points this week. So that's a few kickers I would start here in week 5 of the fantasy football season.